We're in the series, Be Freer, One Step at a Time. And the name of this step is Firmer. And it's step 8 in a 10-step cycle of change. And we all experience change at different times throughout our lives. And so we will pause and we'll listen and we'll accept what's revealed. And when we look back, we'll find that healing and growth have happened. At this stage 8 of a new do pattern, 2 inner realities are there to be savoured. There's a relative ease of doing, and it's a big benefit to notice and name this. In this image, pink berries represent the realised benefits outnumbering the 2 dark berries. And these dark berries metaphorically represent some lesser vibes of struggle present now and again. One of my stories of change illustrating this. For a long time in my life, I didn't accept an invitation unless I felt safe because I knew enough and had enough skill and experience to do it with ease. Then something happened in my life and I launched out into a new pattern. Go where I'm invited. When I did this, the interior vibes of not knowing and not safe were so strong at first that I used the interior image of holding my nose, closing my eyes, and jumping over a cliff into a deep part of the ocean to get the oomph to go where I'd been invited and didn't feel safe. Now, at stage 8, I could see that there were many benefits for me, others, and in my own life and living. And even though that was true, all the pink berries, now and again there are vibes of not knowing enough and not being safe. However, these are much more in the background of my total conscious awareness. Other benefits are revealed if you name how you are feeling different towards yourself, others, and life in general. In my story of do pattern, after a time in this pattern, I asked myself, how was I different? And at this 8th stage, I had stretched the edges of my involvement in life in many new ways. My skills had expanded, and I now had experience that I wouldn't have had without the new pattern. As well, others benefited from my expanding skills, responses, and involvement. And on a really personal level, my life was much fuller and satisfying than it otherwise would have been. Now, doing this savouring and naming will bring another sense of coming together of the original invitation, the struggle, the settling, the new impetus, the stabilising, the allure which has been carrying you on, and the promise becoming clearer. We'll all come more into consciousness. And that can be seen in this image, as a whole lot of strands have come together. There are still some flying loose. However, these do not take from the firm gathering together at the right-hand side of the image. At an emotional level, there is a settling sense that all is in the order it should be. Now, I can tell you that everyone has a different flavour of this same dream of everything being in order. One outcome at step 8 is that you will find that you seldom now, if ever, ask yourself, did I make the right decision? Another emotional outcome that is encouraging, if you take note of it, is that the sense of struggle has now decreased. This is because your rhythm systems are now firing away without so much conscious effort. Yes, there's effort here, but not straining. The rhythmic patterns themselves give the momentum. Again, if you were to reflect on how it is for you at this step 8, you will most likely observe that your previous stances were unsure and pull-back energies operative, fear of moving into unknown territory of experience, waiting for the promise of the outcome. Now you could almost certainly note that these stances have moved to a more up-close involvement stance, because you now have some boundaries established about what works and what doesn't work regarding this new do pattern. So how do you nurture this growth? You nurture this growth by naming and savouring changes. And these changes happen at different levels: emotional, sensing, balancing of overdrive patterns that have happened, and sense of satisfaction. Now I'm giving 2 summaries of what has happened up until now. And the first summary is about that initial promise and lure that has now become clearer. So, in this collection of images, notice the haziness of this top left-hand image. And I'm talking about how that was in my story. At this first level, unknowing and discomfort about the outcome was when I accepted an invitation that didn't have a sense of safety for me. Hence the rather drastic image of holding my nose, etc. On the lower left-hand image, notice the steps, the light, the blindfold. And in my story, how that comes into reality is when it was reflected back to me that the image was over the top for the situation, it was like the blindfold had been released from my inner knowing. And another reality is hidden in that. Beyond my conscious awareness, this image strategy to move into unsafe territory had been reaching its used-by date. And our third image on the right. Notice that there's a definite pathway to the light, with clear clouds visible at the end of the tunnel. And that reflected in reality in my story was, at this integration stage 8, my own inner authority gives approval to stretching the edges of my sense of safety by going where I'm invited. And hence, now I am enabled to stretch the edges of my involvement without that initial sense of definitely not safe. And the second summary is about how the different aspects of this new pattern integrate into your life. And we'll look at them objectively and according to my pattern. So on the first image, you're just working at getting the pattern going. It's kind of trial by error, or working at remembering to do it. For me, on my new do pattern, of go where you're invited, the sense of struggle was overcome through the image, or was moved forward through image. In the second image, more comfort comes, more reality comes, more birthings of plus comes. And in my story, at one time I was relating a stretching edge sense to someone some years later, and mentioned how I used the image of holding my nose, closing my eyes and jumping over a cliff to get the oomph to do it. This person responded, "Isn't that a bit over the top for this stretching edge?" Inside me, I immediately knew that it was. Next morning, a new image arose, floating from the top of a cliff over the ocean. When I need it, that's still my image several years later. And look at the third image. As you can see in the image, the new growth is integrated into life and is stable and will survive other cracks and problems in life. And for me, at this stage 8, there is an integration into my life. I can now come out of an inner stance. It's okay to stretch to the edges of my inner comfort zone. In this image, metaphorically taking the square protruding section as being the current stage of the new do pattern rhythms, you can see that the autopilot rhythmic pathways of the old pattern are in the background of your experience. That is, they are not running you beyond awareness. However, sometimes the old pattern will be triggered up. When this happens, because autopilot is not so strong, decision-making is a possibility. A triggering can now be followed by the question, is the old or new pattern the best way forward? So you're triggered. What can you do? Well, now there are enough benchmarks of experience in this new do pattern for you to be able to choose whether the old or the new pattern is appropriate for this particular situation. And as you continue to integrate this new do pattern and become aware of inner outcomes, there'll be other outcomes that evolve that are deeper than the clearer sense of promise and the little sense of struggle outcomes. Two of these other outcome possibilities are satisfaction and balance. And I know that becoming aware of these deeper outcomes is a significant part of a sense of coming together within this particular cycle of change. This image seems to me to portray satisfaction and balance as being inner realities. It's a real plus for you if you allow your personal and unique sense of satisfaction and balance to come to expression. And so we've paused and we've listened and we've accepted. And when you look back, you'll find that you have a really deep, new level of satisfaction and sense of balance. In summary, savour your emotional outcomes. There's outcome treasure in doing this. So let's revisit the emotional progression. On the top left-hand image, the energy is not sure, unknowing, struggle. In the bottom left-hand image, the energy is gleam in the eye, much more settled emotionally. In the right-hand image, the energy is satisfaction and balance. Savouring emotional outcomes will enhance the benefits of integrating the new do pattern. As well, the sense of it was well worth the effort to change will deepen. At this step 8, strands of the promise will have come together for you, particularly in the present depth of a sense of satisfaction and balance.